There's a kind of distance that doesn't push him away. It drives him mad. A distance that makes his mind unable to let you go, that makes him obsessed with your absence, and leaves him with only one impulse: to come back. But this time with a desire so strong, he won't be able to ignore it. I'm going to tell you right away what that distance is, why it works like magic on his unconscious, and how to use it so that you're never again the woman he takes for granted, but instead the only one his soul can't stop searching for. This video will be very special, without a doubt full of value and power, so hit the like button right now and subscribe. It's completely free for you and helps me enormously. Ready? Let's go. First pillar, the fear of absence. Let me tell you why your panic about him forgetting you is suffocating him. There's a type of distance that doesn't drive him away. It obsesses him. A distance that doesn't come from anger or pride, but from a quiet strength that no woman has ever been able to explain to you. And today, right here, you're going to discover it. Because as long as you keep acting from the fear of him forgetting you, you'll remain a shadow in his world, instead of a sun impossible to ignore. Have you ever wondered why the more you fear he'll leave, the more distant he seems to become? Why the more you crave his texts, his attention, his gaze, the colder, busier, and more indifferent he seems? The answer isn't in his priorities, or in whether there's someone else, or even in his feelings. The answer lies in your vibration of fear. Carl Jung said, "What you resist not only persists, but will grow in size." And today you need to accept this. When you act from panic over his absence, all you do is suffocate his presence. That invisible fear translates into heavy energy, into messages seeking reassurance, into questions seeking certainty, into gestures screaming, "Don't leave me, don't forget me, don't go." And for the male ego, that vibration is like a chain. No matter how sweet your words are, if your energy says, "I need you so I don't feel empty," he senses it. Let me tell you a true story that illustrates this. Her name is Ariadne. She's 31, a teacher, radiant, magnetic, with an energy so warm it lit up any place she went. When she met Richard, everything flowed effortlessly at first. He pursued her, called her, looked at her with admiration. But as Ariadne began falling in love, without realizing it, she started acting from fear. Every time he took a while to respond, her mind filled with dark thoughts. Does he not like me anymore? He must have met someone else. What did I do wrong? And her behavior changed. She stopped prioritizing her work, her gym routine, her nightly reading, her friends. Everything began to revolve around him. If he didn't text, she would. If he was distant, she became sweeter. If he pulled away, she pushed closer, until one day, he simply stopped reaching out. Ariadne was devastated. She couldn't understand what had happened. She'd given everything, always been there, loving and available. Until, in a therapy session, her psychologist told her, "Your energy wasn't shouting love, it was shouting fear, and a man doesn't want to become the emotional crutch for a woman who no longer supports her own world." That day, Ariadne realized her panic over his absence was precisely what created his real absence. Here's the psychological and energetic truth. When your mind is obsessed with not losing him, your vibrational field closes in around him like a fist. And no man, no matter how much he loves you, wants to feel trapped inside someone else's anxiety. Because the fear of his absence creates pressure, and pressure creates suffocation, and suffocation creates real distance. But here's the revelation that will transform everything for you. True magnetic distance arises when you're no longer afraid of his absence. When you understand that his presence is a gift, not a life raft. When his silence no longer triggers your wounds, but instead triggers your freedom. That day, your energy shifts frequencies, and you go from being a magnet screaming, "I need you," to becoming a silent sun radiating, "I'm good right here. But if you want to come closer, you'll have to be big enough to handle my light." Because a man doesn't become obsessed with a woman who chases him. He becomes obsessed with a woman so full of herself that her presence feels like a privilege. And that woman doesn't become a queen because she ignores him. She becomes a queen because she no longer needs him to see her in order to know who she is. Carl Jung said, "Inner freedom is the most attractive state of a human being." And that freedom is activated when you let go of the fear of him forgetting you. Because you understand that any man capable of forgetting a whole, fulfilled woman never deserved to remember her in the first place. So today, before learning the difference between punitive distance and magnetic distance, ask yourself this question with brutal honesty. Am I giving because I genuinely want to, or because I'm afraid of his absence? When your energy stops trying to secure him and starts focusing on sustaining yourself, you'll see what happens. He'll no longer feel pressure. He'll feel emptiness, and that emptiness will become his obsession. Stay tuned, because in the next pillar, you're going to discover the difference between the kind of distance that drives him away forever and the one that makes his soul seek you out, admire you, and choose you like no other. Second pillar, punitive distance versus magnetic distance. This is the difference that decides everything. I'm going to pause quickly to ask you for a favor from the heart. I'd be so grateful if you'd subscribe to the channel. It allows me to keep creating these heartfelt messages, and the best part is, it's completely free for you. Subscribe now, and let's continue with the most powerful part coming up. Now that you understand your fear of absence creates the suffocation that drives him away, it's time to reveal a truth very few women know. A truth that will forever change the way you connect with others. Not all distance pushes a man away. There are two types of distance. One destroys everything, and the other makes him obsessed. Today, you're going to discover which is which. Let's start with the one most people use without realizing it. Punitive distance is the kind of distance born out of wounds, resentment, pride, or the need to punish. When he doesn't respond the way you want, when he disappoints you, when his energy feels distant, your wound reacts with punitive distance. How does it look? Leaving him on read on purpose to teach him a lesson. Ignoring him when he texts so he feels what you're feeling. Pulling away with coldness, indifference, or sarcasm. Distancing yourself not out of self-respect, but to hurt him the way he hurt you. And here's the brutal psychological truth. Punitive distance isn't power, it's pain disguised as indifference. And a man, even if he isn't conscious of the reason, senses that vibration as an attack, as manipulation, as punishment. And his ego, which is his protector, responds the only way it knows how to an attack. It defends itself, shuts down, and pulls away. Let me tell you another true story to illustrate this. Her name is Christina, 28 years old, a graphic designer, sweet, loving, devoted. She was with James, a charismatic, strong, independent man, but emotionally evasive. One day after he canceled a date at the last minute, Christina felt her abandonment wound burning like fire. Instead of expressing her pain calmly, she decided to apply what she'd read on the internet. If he ignores you, ignore him twice as hard. So she disappeared. She stopped talking to him, didn't answer his messages, posted Instagram stories looking happy with empowering quotes that were really indirect messages aimed at him. And for a few days, James did chase her. But his energy wasn't genuine curiosity, it was confusion. Until one day, he simply stopped trying altogether. And when Christina finally decided to answer him, it was too late. He had already pulled away for good. Why did this happen? Because punitive distance creates resentment, not admiration. To a man, her vibration wasn't one of self-love, it was one of punishment. And punishment, even if it seems justified, doesn't build connection, it builds separation. Now here comes the second type of distance, the one that changes absolutely everything, magnetic distance. This is the distance that arises not from pain, but from fullness. It's not a strategy to make him react. It's the natural consequence of a woman so focused on her own world that she has no time to chase someone who isn't present. How does this distance look? When he doesn't reply, you calmly continue with your day, without letting it disrupt your energy. When he doesn't confirm plans, you don't get upset. You simply rearrange your plans with someone else, or with yourself. When he acts cold, you don't respond with coldness. You simply retreat into your own center, your world, your peace. And this distance doesn't create resentment in him. It creates emptiness, an emptiness that fills with his own obsession. Because here's the hidden psychology behind magnetic distance. The male ego needs space to idealize. Absence creates projection. What he cannot easily possess becomes his greatest desire. But this distance doesn't work if you use it as a tactic. It doesn't work if you're counting the hours until he texts you. It doesn't work if your mind stays trapped in him while you pretend to be busy. It only works when you truly are busy with yourself. Carl Jung said, "The male unconscious is not drawn to the woman who begs, nor to the one who punishes him, but to the one who inhabits her own kingdom with such presence that her absence becomes a mystery impossible to ignore." Let me tell you another true story. Her name is Lena, 33 years old, a lawyer, single mother, powerful, but with a history of anxious attachments. She met Sebastian, a man who was successful and had a very intense world of his own. At first, their connection was magical, but when he began to seem less available, Lena felt that old wound start to stir. However, this time, she did something different. Instead of punishing him with coldness or over-communicating her anxiety, she chose to cultivate her magnetic distance. She went back to the gym she'd abandoned, restarted the podcast she'd put on hold to focus on him, planned outings with friends, signed up for a writing workshop she'd dreamed of for years. And suddenly, without forcing it, her energy was full of life, projects, and her own light. The result? Sebastian started seeking her out again, not as a bored man looking for distraction, but as a man who felt something unique slipping away and wanted to win it back. Here's the truth that transforms everything. Punitive distance is born from a wounded ego, while magnetic distance is born from a fulfilled soul. One creates resentment and separation, the other creates admiration and obsession. So today, carve this into your soul. When you pull away, do it not to hurt him, but to honor yourself. When you stay silent, let it be because your peace matters more than provoking a reaction. When you distance yourself, let it be because your own world is waiting for you, not because you're waiting for him to come running. Because a man doesn't come back for the woman who punishes him. He comes back for the woman who, even while loving him, never abandons herself. Stay very close, because in the next pillar, I'll reveal how to create this magnetic emptiness in his mind so he thinks about you even when he swears he doesn't care anymore. And that strong soul is what becomes his true obsession. Third pillar, the art of creating emptiness, how your silence and your focus on yourself become his obsession. If you've understood that magnetic distance isn't punishment but a reflection of your fullness, you're ready to learn the most powerful art in feminine energy, creating emptiness. Because a man doesn't become obsessed with the woman who's always available, nor with the one who complains, nor with the one who ignores him out of resentment. A man becomes obsessed with the woman who creates emptiness. But what does it mean to create emptiness? It's not disappearing to manipulate him. It's not cutting off contact to punish him. It's not ignoring him while staring at your phone, waiting for his message. Creating emptiness is an energetic art. It means withdrawing into yourself so intensely that his mind cannot fill the space you've left behind. Let me share a true story. Her name is Fabiana. She's 38, a wellness coach and mother of 2 kids. She met Andrew, a successful businessman, divorced with a very solid world of his own. In the beginning, he pursued her constantly. Morning texts, midday video calls, evening dates full of connection and depth. But over time, Andrew started spacing out his messages, focusing more on work, taking longer to reply. And Fabiana felt her abandonment wound ignite like fire. Her mind was screaming at her. Message him first, tell him you miss him, ask him if everything's okay. But something deep inside told her, don't act from fear. Act from self-love. That day, instead of chasing him, Fabiana created emptiness. She went back to her sunrise yoga practice. She started writing her book, the one she'd put off for years while prioritizing relationships. She signed up for a conscious cooking class. She began going on walks without her phone. She danced alone in her living room once her kids were asleep, just like she used to. And without even realizing it, her mind started filling up with herself again. Andrew was no longer the center of her attention. He was a part of her world, but he was no longer her entire world. That's the art of creating emptiness, filling yourself up so completely that his absence no longer hurts, but instead becomes a space for you to expand. And here's the brutal psychology behind this art. When you leave a void in his world, his mind fills it with memories of you. When you're not around, his imagination starts projecting. When you don't respond right away, he starts wondering, what is she thinking about? Who is she with? What world is she living in? And mystery is the greatest fuel for obsession. But listen with your soul. Creating emptiness isn't disappearing while pretending to be busy, all while checking if he's online. That's not emptiness, that's anxiety in disguise. True emptiness happens when your life is so full of you that even if he shows up, it doesn't derail the course of your days. Carl Jung said, "The deepest attraction doesn't arise from the desire to possess, but from the impossibility of fully knowing someone." And that's what a woman creates when she lives for herself. A space of mystery, a vibrational field that can't be entirely grasped. Because a man can love your body. He can admire your intelligence. He can desire your sexual energy. But what truly obsesses him is what he cannot possess. Your inner world. Here are some practical keys for creating real emptiness. 1. Return to your passions, not mere hobbies for distraction, but those activities that expand your soul and make you lose track of time. 2. Silence your need for an immediate reply. When you feel anxious about his silence, use it as a signal to dive into yourself. Meditate, go for a walk, write, sing. 3. Resist the impulse to share everything with him, not because it's a secret, but because not everything needs to be spoken. What you keep for yourself becomes your silent magnetism. 4. Remember who you were before you met him. Go back to habits, dreams, friendships, and routines you abandoned to prioritize his attention. Because here's the final revelation of this point. Emptiness doesn't push him away. Emptiness creates a space where his mind, his instincts, and his masculine energy can move toward you. A man can't chase you if there's nowhere for him to find you. If you're always there, his mind relaxes. But if you retreat into yourself, his mind becomes restless. And restlessness is the first step toward pursuit. So today, strong soul, ask yourself this with brutal honesty. Is my silence emptiness, or is it punishment? Is my distance fullness, or is it resentment? Because a man doesn't become obsessed with the woman who ignores him to hurt him. He becomes obsessed with the woman who, even while loving him, remains deeply immersed in her own universe. Stay tuned, because in the next pillar, I'll tell you the true story of a woman who, by becoming the queen of her inner kingdom, made a man who had taken her for granted come back to her with a desire and respect he'd never felt for anyone else. Fourth pillar, the story of the queen in her own kingdom, how a busy woman became irresistible. There are stories that not only inspire, they activate something inside you that's been there all along but was dormant. Today I'm going to tell you the true story of a woman who understood the art of magnetic distance, not as a tactic, but as the natural consequence of becoming the queen of her own kingdom. Her name is Renata. She's 41, an architect divorced for 3 years and mother to a teenage son. When she met Maurice, a charismatic businessman, confident with an energy that filled every room, her world was shaken. After years of focusing only on her work and her son, she felt that spark again, that aliveness, that vibration that made her feel like a woman once more. In the beginning, Maurice pursued her intensely. Good morning and good night texts, flowers delivered to her office, spontaneous plans, deep gazes that made her tremble. Renata began to fall in love. And like many women, without realizing it, she started giving away her center. She stopped accepting freelance design projects so she'd have time in case he called. She canceled dinners with friends whenever he popped up unexpectedly. She waited for his texts before going to sleep, and if they didn't come, her night was ruined. And as an inevitable pattern, the more available Renata became, the more distant Maurice grew. From daily texts, he shifted to texting every 3 days. From spontaneous lunch dates, he shifted to only seeing her on weekends, if nothing urgent came up. Renata felt fear take over her body, that fear of absence, of him forgetting her, of everything being just another illusion in her life. Until one day, in a session with her feminine leadership coach, she heard a sentence that broke her and rebuilt her at the same time. A queen doesn't wait to be chosen. A queen chooses herself every day, and that's why anyone who wants to be in her kingdom must be worthy of it. Renata realized that ever since she'd met Maurice, she had stopped inhabiting her own kingdom. She had stepped down from her throne and was standing at the gates, waiting for him to come in. And that's when she decided it was over. That day, Renata did something different. She went back to her yoga studio, It was her temple, her sacred space, the place where her mind calmed and her energy expanded. She had quit going because classes overlapped with the times Maurice usually called her. She accepted an interior design project in another city, a lifelong dream of hers to travel and work at the same time. She used to think, if I travel, he won't be able to see me. She began energy healing therapy, not to attract him back, but to clear her energy field from the need to be chosen. She went back to writing in her blog about emotional architecture, a project she'd abandoned since before her divorce. During those 2 weeks of transformation, she heard nothing from Maurice, no texts, no calls. Her old self would have fallen apart. But this new Renata felt fulfilled. Every night, as she went to bed, she smiled in gratitude. Because for the first time in years, she felt like her life was hers, and for a feminine soul, that is true freedom. And then, the inevitable happened. One Sunday afternoon, as she left her yoga class with a relaxed face and an expanded soul, she received a message from Maurice. "Hi, Queen. I haven't heard from you in days. Are you okay? I miss you." Renata smiled, not from her ego, but from her soul, because she understood something no woman ever forgets once she truly integrates it. A man doesn't miss the woman who's always there. He misses the woman who lives in a world so fascinating that her absence becomes a void impossible to ignore. But the most remarkable thing wasn't his message. It was what happened afterward. When they finally saw each other, Maurice was different. His gaze was no longer that of a man who takes a woman for granted. It was the gaze of a man who knows that if he doesn't do things right, he could lose her. And in that look, there was something Renata had never seen before. Respect, admiration, fascination. Because when a woman becomes the queen of her own kingdom, she doesn't need to ignore a man to attract him. Her energy alone creates a magnetic field he cannot resist. Carl Jung said, "The deepest attraction doesn't arise from what you show, but from what you keep hidden, from what doesn't need to be explained because it's felt, because it vibrates." So today, strong soul, engrave this into your soul. Your kingdom is yours. Your throne is yours. Your world is yours. And whoever wants to enter will have to be big enough to hold your expansion and conscious enough to honor your presence. Stay close, because in the next pillar, I'll reveal how to receive him when he comes back, to seal your status as a high-value woman forever, and become the woman who no longer waits to be chosen, but who does the choosing. Fifth and final pillar, when he comes back. How to receive him to seal your new high-value status. If you've put into practice everything you've heard so far, you already know what's going to happen. Because when a woman creates emptiness from her power, when her distance is magnetic rather than punitive, when her life becomes so full of herself that her energy no longer vibrates with need, he comes back. Always. Sometimes with a shy message. Sometimes with an urgent call. Sometimes with a restless silence meant to provoke your reaction. But he comes back. And this is where most women lose their power again, through the way they receive him. Because if, when he returns, you greet him from the same old wound, all the energetic progress you've made collapses in seconds. Let me tell you a true story that illustrates this with brutal clarity. Her name is Veronica. She's 29, a community manager, with a big heart, gentle energy, and a past full of relationships where she was always the one giving more. After practicing magnetic distance with her partner Alexander, a man with a chaotic life and emotional immaturity, he started seeking her out again. He went from not texting her for days to sending her messages every night asking how she was. From not confirming plans to insisting on seeing her. But the day they finally met in person, Veronica received him as the woman she had always been, with an anxious hug, with questions hiding her fear. "Why were you so distant? Did you miss me? Did something happen?" And with a sparkle in her eyes that screamed, "Finally, you're back. Now I can feel okay again." And Alexander, instead of deepening the connection, simply felt relieved. Not impressed, not fascinated, not challenged. Just calm. Because, without realizing it, Veronica showed him that even if his distance had broken her, she would always be there for him, no matter how he behaved. Here's the psychological and energetic truth you must integrate. How you receive him defines whether he comes back with respect and desire or with comfort and routine. If you receive him from a place of need, you inflate his ego. If you receive him from resentment, you activate his defenses. But if you receive him from your center, from your peace, from your throne, his soul feels it like an electric shock, and his mind translates it into admiration. Carl Jung said, "True feminine strength is silent. It doesn't try to prove anything, it simply manifests itself, and whoever perceives it can never see you the same way again." So how do you receive a man who comes back after feeling your magnetic distance? With calm. When he texts you, don't respond immediately. If you're busy, that's not a game, it's respect for your present. With subtle warmth. When you see him, greet him with a soft smile, without that anxious sparkle in your eyes that screams, "Finally, you're here." With light curiosity. Don't ask, "Why didn't you text me?" Instead ask, "How was your week?" Make him feel seen, not interrogated, with vibrational sovereignty. Let your words say, "It's good to see you," but let your energy say, "My world is full, with or without you." Because here's the real alchemy. A man doesn't stay because you need him. He stays when he feels that your life is so full that his presence is a privilege, not a necessity. Let me tell you how Veronica's story ended. After that first time back together, Alexander kept seeking her out as before. But she, though she loved him, felt deep inside that something no longer fit. She had tasted her magnetic distance. She had felt her own power. And returning to her old vibration of wounded need felt like betraying herself. So one day, with a peace she'd never felt before, she told him, "Alexander, I realized something. I love you, but I love my peace even more. And with you, I'm always at war inside myself." That day, Veronica chose her kingdom. And even though it hurt, something inside her sealed forever. Her dignity. Here's the final integration of this pillar. When he comes back, receive him the way a queen receives a visitor. With respect, with kindness, with openness, but from the certainty that his presence is welcome, not indispensable. Never again be the woman who melts just because he came back. Be the woman who smiles and thinks, "Of course you came back. There's no other place like this kingdom." Because a man might enjoy many women, but he becomes obsessed with the one whose energy he can never fully possess. Carl Jung said, "The deepest attraction doesn't come from love that gives everything away, but from love shared from a place of freedom." Stay close, because in the conclusion, we'll seal this transformation with a declaration that will activate your magnetic energy so you never again doubt your power. Now you know. It's not your closeness that makes him love you. It's your magnetic distance that makes him remember you when you're not there, idealize you when he can't touch you, and seek you out when he senses that your world keeps spinning with or without him. Today you've understood that it's not about ignoring him to punish him, nor about pulling away to provoke him. It's about retreating into yourself with so much strength and self-love that his soul feels that in order to deserve you, he must grow. Because a woman who creates emptiness is not cold, she's conscious. A woman who doesn't chase is not indifferent, she's wise. A woman who inhabits her own kingdom is not selfish, she's a queen. Comment below, "Today I choose to be the queen of my kingdom." Write it and declare that from this moment on, your presence is a privilege. Your time is sacred and your energy is the magnetic field no man will ever forget. And always remember, love is not begged for. Love is attracted with the exact distance that makes him come back obsessed. If this message resonated with your soul, it's time to take the next step. Subscribe now to keep raising your vibration with each new video. Give this content a like so more souls can hear what has freed you today. Share this video with anyone you know who also needs to let go in order to heal. And of course, leave your declaration in the comments so this message becomes sealed into your energy. But above all, don't leave just yet. There's so much more waiting for you. Dive into the other videos here on the channel and keep expanding your energy and your power. I'll see you in the next video.